Welcome. If you're joining us now, good morning, good afternoon. You feel free to say hello in the chat and tell us where you're coming from. Welcome from Virginia, Munich, Georgia, Scotland, Bosnia. Wow, from all over. Welcome. Cool. All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are coming from on the globe. I would like to welcome you to this webinar provided by ENSALIB, IFLA's Environment, Sustainability, and Library section. Today's webinar is called Green Games for Green Libraries, Video Games as Tools for Environmental Education. This webinar aims to explore how libraries can innovate and adapt to new times through video games with a particular focus on environmental education, while maintaining their traditional roles as spaces for silent reading and study. Libraries must increasingly incorporate new practices to engage with their communities. This talk has two main goals: to encourage libraries to acquire video game consoles and video games as lendable materials, providing a curated list of recommended titles for their collections. And also, it's offering practical, ready-to-use activity ideas that libraries can directly adopt, connecting these video games with off-screen activities. So my name is Beth Filer-Williams. I am on the standing committee for ENSALIB, and I'm also a user experience research librarian at Oregon State University Libraries. A quick introduction on what IFLA ENSALIB is. ENSALIB's aim is to encourage libraries to inspire their communities into more environmentally sustainable ways of action by providing materials on green librarianship and by giving voice to projects worldwide. Here's a link in the chat if you want some more information. Beyond managing the yearly IFLA Green Library Award, ENSALIB offers many projects and activities, from webinars like this one or recordings of others, book projects, events, conference sessions. We're planning now for the Congress that will be held in Korea this summer, and also many online resources such as our Green Library definitions, checklist, posters, tools, and they're translated into many languages. So we often ask for volunteers to help with those things. So if you're interested, please reach out. And also you can subscribe to our newsletter or even consider submitting to it. I'll throw that in the chat. We'd love to get things from various people on what you do. Let's see. The next slide is about our information about this being recorded. We just wanted to give this information about the privacy, and microphones are muted for attendees. Please use the chat or the Q&A if you have questions, and we will follow up at the end. And you can follow this other information if you have concerns about privacy and GDPR compliance. All right, now we're getting to the good part. So I am very pleased to welcome our speaker today, David Mercado Cuesta. He holds a degree in information and documentation from the Universidad de Zaragoza, hopefully pronouncing that right. He's currently finishing his PhD and actually just offended last week, so he's officially a doctor now, and it was on data reuse for environmental planning. He works as an interim lecturer at the same institution and has professional experience in several libraries and archives with a strong focus on environmental information units. He is a member of the Spanish Network of Environmental Information and Documentation Centers, RECIDA, I think it's called. So without me talking anymore, take it away, David. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. Thank you, Beth. I'm going to share my screen now. Give me a sec. share. Sorry.
Sure, no problem. It always takes a minute to switch over from my sharing to someone else's sharing.
So I should be sharing now. Can you see like full screen?
Yes, we see it. It looks perfect.
Okay, perfect then. So I want to start my turn thanking this opportunity to be here, thanks to Beth in particular, but thanks to Ensulive for allowing me to present a bit about my research lines and for making all this happen. My presentation, as she said, is titled Green Games for Green Libraries, Video Games as Tools for Environmental Education. This is the table of contents of the presentation for today. I will start with an introduction of why, well, I will state why are we doing this, video games and libraries and the potential for environmental education. I'll also talk a bit about the main platforms and the main genres of video games, very briefly to continue to Nintendo and Nintendo Switch. Today's webinar is going to be focused on a specific genre called cozy games, which we will also define briefly. The main example is going to be Animal Crossing New Horizons, which is one of the video games, but we'll also mention other cozy games that are of interest before jumping into the main conclusion. So, why are we doing this? Even if it sounds obvious, we must acknowledge that libraries are evolving. I think some people, especially outside of our field, still think of libraries as these places of silence where you go to study and read. And while that is partially true, some of them have this purpose of offering spaces, calm spaces to read and study, libraries are also adapting to new technologies. This means that the collections they curate include other kinds of documents, not only journals, books, and magazines, which are traditional items, but also audiovisual material, access to databases, and even objects. One example of these are libraries of things, as the Borowitz Library in the UK, the Chicago 2 Library in the United States, just to mention a few of the examples, but there are many more. These libraries of things are collections of objects that can be loaned, same as books, but it changes to appliances, toys, musical instruments, sports equipment, even seed libraries to plant different seeds. So this is also applicable for video games. In this context, video games have found a space in libraries, as many studies have been showing in the last decade. Sorry, I need to drink a lot of water, so we'll be grabbing my bottle a lot. Even if sometimes video games are perceived as a mere entertainment, they are increasing their recognition and their cultural, educational, and social value. They are part of a broader change in how libraries engage with digital media, with new audiences, and with new literacies. The inclusion of video games in libraries is actually generally seen as positive, especially by younger audience and amongst librarians who also play video games in their free time. But I think there are still some lingering prejudices, people that think or that see video games as a distraction, or they think that they lack intellectual merit, which is not true. This perception, thankfully, is gradually changing as video games are used not only for leisure, but also for educational purposes. We must also say that video games are a form of artistic expression. They combine multiple art forms such as illustration, music, writing, animation, architecture, or emotional narratives. That makes them comparable to other forms of art, like cinema or literature. Hence, they are objects of aesthetic, but also cultural appreciation. This recognition of these video games and their value, especially for libraries, has also reached an institutional level. Just as an example, in Spain, video games are subject to mandatory deposit, called depósito legal, meaning they must be archived and preserved in the National Library of Spain, just like traditional documents, only since 2022, so it's quite recent. This is a declaration of their status as cultural artifacts worth documenting and preserving for future generations. As we mentioned, video games can have educational and pedagogic uses. They can support the learning of different skills and competencies, such as language acquisition, history, ethics, science, or even critical thinking. Their interactive nature also allows experiential learning in an active form of consumption. Libraries have begun to explore this potential as well. Video games are being incorporated into educational programs in library context, especially for digital literacy training. This supports the idea of libraries as a dynamic learning space not limited to traditional print documents. One particularly promising area is the environmental education and ecological awareness. Video games have a huge potential for promoting environmental literacy as they can simulate complex and real-life systems, such as different ecosystems, climate change, sustainability challenges, in a way that is fun and engaging. These experiences can foster empathy for nature, and they can deepen the understanding of environmental issues. When we talk about video games, we must think of the companies behind them, the companies that produce them, their platforms, and some characters that have become part of the popular culture. Let's start with two of the most known companies in gaming history, Sega and Nintendo. They're both Japanese companies which have some sort of rivalry between them. Sega created iconic consoles such as the Dreamcast, although now it's true that they have changed the focus to other forms of gaming and software development. Meanwhile, Nintendo has been creating a wide range of consoles during history. There was a time during the 80s and the 90s that these companies, Sega and Nintendo, kept trying to outperform each other in technology and creativity in the so-called console wars. That's how it was called. A huge part of these are the mascots of the company, who competed for popularity. We see here Sonic the Hedgehog of Sega and Mario from Nintendo. Both characters are iconic, are recognizable by everyone, and they even appear, putting aside that rivalry, they even appear together in games like Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, which is a sports game with these characters from these franchises. In 1994, another player entered the scene, Sony, with the launch of PlayStation, which is currently on the fifth version of the PlayStation 5. They changed the strategy, focusing not on mascots, but on full franchises, such as the franchise God of War. Other companies have also left their mark through multi-platform development and online communities. For example, Blizzard is a United States-based company famous for computer-centered franchises. You might have heard of World of Warcraft, Overwatch, StarCraft. These games have shaped the modern esports and the modern massive multiplayer online role-playing games, MMORPG as an acronym. Many of the Blizzard games are available on different platforms, from PlayStation to Xbox to Nintendo Switch. On the other hand, we also have companies like Ubisoft that has created another franchises like Just Dance, which you might have heard of, or Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed is quite relevant because it has been used for history teaching. I saw a paper once that used Assassin's Creed. One of them is based on Paris. When the Notre Dame cathedral got burned, they use Assassin's Creed to recreate the cathedral, just as an example. These games are also available on different platforms. There's obviously been a bigger evolution, and each part, this is just a synthesis, and we have to see that each company relies on their fortes, but they all take part of the same gaming history and the same culture. The world of video games is diverse. Just like literature or film, video games can be categorized into genres based on gameplay mechanics, player objectives or goals, and the type of experience they offer. Before we dive into cozy games specifically, I'd like to take a moment to briefly mention or explain the main genres. There are action games and shooters, which tend to be fast-paced and focus on reflexes, combat, and competition. In a similar line, there are horror and survival games, which create tension or fear, mostly like zombies and all kind of creatures. Other genres can be like strategy games, focus on planning, decision making, and managing complex systems, like building a city or leading a civilization. It's like playing Risk, but on a console. Some of them have a connection to environment, since the societies need resources such as rocks, wood, or water to maintain the society alive and keep progressing. Puzzle games are also interesting for developing cognitive skills, as they require logical thinking and pattern recognition. These puzzle games sometimes they can support stress relief and mindfulness while you are focused on solving those puzzles, although we have to take into account that different people have different levels of frustration. It can be frustrating when you can't solve a puzzle and you try and you try, but usually they help you focus. I personally also love reading games. In these games, players match their actions to music or visual cues. Some examples of these games are Just Dance, which I mentioned, or Guitar Hero. In Guitar Hero, you have a controller shaped as a guitar, and you have to keep following the notes on the screen. They improve things like hand-eye coordination, and they encourage physical movement in a fun way. I think reading games are ideal for group activities. We have also adventure games and role-playing games, RPGs, that offer some of the richest narrative experiences. Both of them invite players to explore the world, build relationships with other characters, and make decisions. Usually, decision making, the choices you have to make, affect the main plot of the story, which can lead to different endings. While adventure games focus more on a linear way of storytelling, RPGs add a layer of character progression and different side quests that you can take or you can omit. There are also sports games that simulate football playing, racing, basketball, so specific that they have their own genre. Simulation games are the most interesting for today, and as the name indicates, they recreate aspects of real life, allowing players to experiment and create in a free way, in a stress-free way. These simulation games can go from simulating a farming, simulating daily life, to different jobs and skills, like kitchen simulator, firefighter simulator. They are especially valuable in educational context as they promote critical thinking and problem-solving skills. Each genre offers unique gameplay experiences and educational possibilities. It's true that many modern titles blend elements from different genres, making them even more engaging and complex, but hard to limit or hard to classify in just one category. If you are interested, there is like the link to Wikipedia with a full list of video game genres with more in depth. We're focusing now on Nintendo, which is Nintendo is a Japanese company founded in 1889. It has a long history. Although it's true that in its origins, it produce playing cards, like a deck of cards, you know. It entered the video game industry in the 70s with the first console color TV game in 1977. Since then, Nintendo has developed a wide range of consoles that can be of different kinds. First of all, we have home consoles like the NES or the Wii, which are designed for living room play. There's a physical console that you plug into your TV and you watch it on the TV and you play with a remote. There are also portable consoles like the Game Boy or the Nintendo DS, which are handheld. You can have it in your hand, it has a screen incorporated, and you can take it with you. More recently, they have created hybrid systems like the Nintendo Switch, which can be both used at home, plugging into a TV and taking out the controllers, or it can be used on the go. It's not very big, so you can take it with you. Just a moment to look at the Nintendo family of consoles, which is quite rich, and it's been central to Nintendo's success during the years. Focusing on the Nintendo Switch, which is here on the bottom row, the third one on the bottom row, it was launched in 2017, and it introduced this hybrid model that can be used both at home and on the go in handheld mode like a portable device. Over time, they have released other models of the Nintendo Switch, like the Switch Lite, which is a smaller, fully portable version, or the Switch OLED, which features a larger, brighter screen and improved audio, but it functions the same way as the original model. Also in 2025, just a few months ago, Nintendo released the Nintendo Switch 2, a successor with updated hardware and new features. While it supports many games from the original Switch, it doesn't matter if you bought the game for the first Nintendo, you can still play it on the second. The arrival of this second version brings attention to the issue of technological obsolescence, which is something to be think about. Now, regarding how the Switch works, games can be bought in physical format. They come in small cartridges with a small box, or in digital format. They are downloadable from the Nintendo eShop. Digital games are stored either in the console, in the internal memory of the console, or in a micro SD card, which is external and allows users to expand the available storage. The system that Nintendo Switch has also supports Amiibo. Amiibo is a strange word, I know, but it refers to some figures about the characters and things from the games, with NFC chips that can be scanned to unlock exclusive contents in many games, different new characters, new actions, new items that are only accessible through these figures. For libraries, this means that they can lend the console itself, because it's a portable device, you can lend it entirely as part of a media and gaming collection, but they also can install spaces, gaming spaces with screens and the console to play inside. They can also lend individual cartridges or individual games, or they could even, depending on the licensing, micro SD cards with preloaded digital games for users to take home and play. It's true again that from a library perspective, the release of new models like the Nintendo Switch 2 raises important questions about how should libraries manage older consoles and games that may no longer be supported, and how do we address the issue of sustainability when digital platforms evolve so quickly. This highlights a broader challenge for libraries working with technology. They need to balance access, innovation, and long-term preservation while minimizing waste and promoting digital inclusion. But I think that's topic just to reflect, that's for another seminar. Nintendo has created some of the most famous sagas in video games, with iconic mascots and characters that can be recognized by everyone, even by non-players. For example, Donkey Kong and Mario Bros. From the 80s. Just a few years ago, there was a Mario Bros. Film, and a second Mario Bros. Film is meant to be released soon. The Legend of Zelda is also interesting. The saga follows the adventures of Princess Zelda and Link, which is kind of like her protector, squire, companion. This is an unsure relationship. They are bound to reincarnate in different moments of time to defeat Ganondorf, which is an evil sorcerer. So you have the same main three characters in different moments of history and time. Everyone also has have heard of Tetris, this game with the pieces that keep falling and you have to make a puzzle, or Pokemon, which is known for the anime adaptation. We must say that some of the video games are Nintendo exclusive. You can only play on Nintendo platforms, but other companies make multi-platform games that can be played in Nintendo consoles, but also in other consoles like PlayStation or Xbox or whatever console is multi-platform. Just as an example, we see here the first game is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I personally like it a lot. It has an interesting plot. It also has a lot of connections with nature, but it is not a cozy game. There is fight involved, there's competition, but well. A curiosity about this game, the character in there, it's called Link. He's the main character. But since the saga is called Legend of Zelda, many people think he's named Zelda, but no, he's Link. Also, Luigi's Mansion 3 is part of the same Mario Bros. Universe. Luigi is Mario's brother, and in this video game, you are trapped in a haunted mansion, and you have to escape, capturing ghosts with a Hoover, a vacuum. Pokemon, which is also one of the main sagas, have the main games, but they also have some side games with more connection to the cozy vibes. For example, recently they released Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu. Depending on the version you buy, you get Eevee or Pikachu, which are different creatures. And it's true that you can catch other Pokemon and you can fight, which is not entirely the vibe we're looking for. But you can also pet the Pokemon that goes with you, and you can forge a friendship with him. So it's really about caring about your companion. Or more interesting, in March 2026, they will release a new game called Pokemon Pokopia, which is part of the cozy games. And you are a Pokemon, and that you live in a place that is empty, and you have to build a land, you have to build a home for other Pokemons to live there and rest. So it's part of these cozy games. One of the cons of these games is that they are a bit expensive. So it's true that there's a lot of money involved. These consoles are also expensive. Also, some players complain that the physical version does not include any kind of poster, flyer, as it used to do in the past. So it's like a downgrade of the physical versions to encourage more the digital versions. But digital versions have more issues of preservation towards the future. So now, what's a cozy game? The word cozy evokes a sense of warmth, calm, and comfort, like the feeling of sitting with your pajamas, with a blanket, by the fireplace with a warm cup of tea or coffee, as the image shows. That's what's cozy try to means, no? So cozy games aim to recreate that same emotional atmosphere through the interactive experiences. They're usually considered part of the life simulation games, the life simulation genre, and they are designed to avoid violence and to avoid competitivity, the pressure of competitions. Instead, they focus on exploration, on creativity, on routine, the simple pressures of daily life. Common themes of cozy games include nature, gardening, farming, or things like building a home or connecting with a peaceful community, making friends in the community. The appeal of these cozy games also comes from soft visuals, soft aesthetics, soothing soundtracks, and easy intuitive controls. They are not games that are hard to play. They are usually kind of intuitive and really easy to play. This game invites players to slow down, to feel safe. There's a safe space in that game, and they invite players to enjoy a gentle form of play, making them perfect for promoting emotional well-being and mindful engagement, especially in educational or library settings. Animal Crossing New Horizons is the game I'm gonna focus more because it's the game I've played more and the one I like most. We have to say that it's part of a saga that started in 2001, and there's been different main games and again other derivative games that have been released. So just to think, there's like Pokemon, you have the main line, and then there's side games. There is even an anime film about Animal Crossing, which the characters from the game. We must say also that is the Animal Crossing New Horizons, this specific game, was the second best-selling game on Nintendo Switch, and it's the 13th best-selling game in history, which is, I think, is kind of remarkable for this video game. The goal of this game is very simple. You have to create a society on a desert island from scratch. The game offers limited interaction options. It's true that you cannot do much, but they offer limitless or endless decoration options, and you can even terraform. When you start, you have to choose a layout for your island, which can have rivers. You also start with an airport. That's how you move to the island. Allegedly, you are moving from a new place. You're moving to a new place in this island, so you have to choose the layout where the buildings are. Not all the buildings, only the airport and the kind of like town hall. It's called residence or like neighbor's office, but it's like it acts like the town hall. You start in a tent when you first move. The island is empty. It has like trees, flowers, and different kinds, but it's empty of people and other services. And slowly, you have to keep increasing the services. You have to make the island prettier. You have to trim them, get rid of the weeds, clean the island, and make it useful to attract neighbors. The goal of the game is to attract neighbors and create a community. Your house also evolves. You start in a tent, but then you can keep evolving into a three-floor house. So you are responsible for choosing the installation of the rest of the buildings. When a neighbor comes, you can choose where they're gonna live, other people houses, and also shops. There are a few shops and other buildings that you can select where to put them. You can also eventually, not at first, but eventually you can modify rivers or create rivers and lakes. It's true that you cannot change the mouth of the river where it leads to the sea, but you can change the trajectory or the course of the game or of the river. You can cut it, you can make whatever. Also, you can you can add or remove ground levels, up to 3 ground levels. Just a bit about the gameplay mechanics. Your main character, that is you, and that you can personalize in dress, hair color, and different facial features, have basic tools that allows you to do basic actions. First, you have a watering can that you can use to water the flowers and plants for them to grow and blossom. So you can teach, especially for younger kids, how watering the plants make them grow. You have a net to catch bugs and critters, like butterflies and ladybugs and mosquitoes and even spiders. There is a shovel that you can use to dig things that are buried on the ground. You use mostly fossils, like dinosaur fossils, but also other items. An axe to chop trees and get wood, a fishing rod to fish, and a slingshot. Sometimes you see presents with a balloon that are flying and you can hit them with a slingshot and they fall into the ground. There are other items you can add, such as a pole, a ladder, used to climb between the grounds, or the pole to jump to the other side of the river, umbrellas, sparklers, different items you can use. These items can be bought or they can be built. Depends on the material you use to build them. They have different durability. Around the game, there are different stations where you can go and you can start building the items, not only the tools, but also furniture or even other things. One big part of the game is the DIY, and even with recycled materials. So I think there's also options to think. In the game, you can do this with these materials and that recycle. In real life, we can also do them. We can do them or not. Depends on the layer of realism we want to give. As I said, the goal is to get villagers moved to your island. You can host up to 10 villages per island. When the island is empty, you run into them in different other islands you can travel to. You can invite them to live, but you cannot kick them out. Eventually, they might ask you they're considered leaving, and you can tell them yes, leave or no. And the only bad thing that you can do is trying to be rude to them, and they might eventually leave. You can push them while you're working. You can hit them with the net you use to catch bugs. You can give them garbage, and they may leave. However, the purpose of the game is not that. The purpose is to be nice to them, to talk and interact with them. You can do them favors. They will ask you favors, and you can do the favors for them. You can visit them in their houses, and they can also come visit at your house. You can exchange gifts. So that's the point of it, creating friends. One thing I find interesting is that there are multiple Facebook groups where people talk about their villagers and they have their own favorites. Since these villagers are anthropomorphic animals, some people have ideas like, I will make an island with all cats or all dogs, and they just choose whatever animal they want in their island. Beside the villager, there are also a few other important characters to know. The whole operation of moving into a desert island is run by Tom Nook, who is this raccoon here down on the bottom on the left. It's kind of the mayor of the city, and it has a helper, Isabel. It's this kind of dog next to him, who makes daily news, and they can help you with other stuff regarding the management of the island. An interesting fact is that at the front of the town hall, the residence office, there is a radio. I don't know if you noticed there, and you can use it to organize stretching sessions. So you will actually the games the characters in the game, but also you in real life. You grab the controllers and you have to stretch as the character is stretching, which is very beneficial for back health. Sometimes they're like, oh, when you're playing video games, you are stiff, so this game encourages you to move. There are also different services on this island run by different NPCs. There are shops. There's a clothing shop. There is an airport which you can use to travel to another island. Recently, they made an update of the game. So even if the game is old, it's from 2020, old, 6 years old, they keep updating it and implementing new features like this hotel. Now you can have a hotel where tourists can come and stay, they visit the island, and even some of your previous villagers, previous neighbors can come to visit to the hotel. When you take the plane, you can also travel to another island. There is Harps Island. It is a communal place of vendors who have their own caravans, kind of like food trucks and street markets. Harps a photographer, but you can buy also carpets, different art items, shoes and bags, and you can interact in other ways. There's a fortune teller, there's a hairdresser. You can customize different items. So there's a few other characters in this communal services island. It's very, you see the aesthetic of Harps is like the hippies, you know. Furthermore, and this is the last slide about the other characters, there are other visitants that are itinerant to the island. They visit the island on different days and different times. Some of them will buy you fish and bags. Some others can give you different special items, sometimes after making a task for them. For example, there is a ghost, and when it appears, you have to collect his essence particles, and when you give them back, he gives you a very expensive item. One of the most interesting buildings is the museum. The museum is maintained by your donations. Whenever you dig a fossil, or you catch a bug or a fish, or you buy a piece of art, you can donate it. It has 4 wings, the fish, the bugs, the fossils, and the art. And it also has a cafeteria run by Brewster, with this pigeon here. I think the museum is really interesting because it's an example of a community-based center and citizen science, where are the citizenships, the citizens of the city are the ones making the science of the museum. You are the one in the end building up the collection. The owner of the museum is Blathers, is this owl here. In Spanish, it's called Socrates, like the philosopher, and he can examine the different items you donate. When you donate an art piece, he can tell if it's fake or real, and there are differences. There are guides online to check the differences, and that can be used to teach also art and fossils to identify part species. When you make a donation, also this owl Blathers, he gives you trivia about the donated item. So there's a lot of potential for environmental education there, comparing this trivia to the real life examples. They also have a museum week in May where they make special events at the museum. We mentioned that the cozy games are known for the cozy aesthetic and the soothing music, and a clear example of this is the popularity of the game. So in YouTube, there's a lot of videos of players that have created different seasons, different backgrounds, indoors, outdoors, and they use the original soundtrack of the game to make these study relaxing videos that you can play in the background while you're studying or reading or working. And you can see there's a visual element of this. Different seasons, there's a library, you can recreate a bakery. It can be, that's the potential of this game and the creativity of the people. This game peaked during COVID-19 pandemic because there was a time of uncertainty and isolation. So people got really invested on cozy and life simulation games, as these games provided a safe, comforting space where playing could end your routines, connect with nature, and maintain a sense of control. This title has also been used for online peaceful demonstrations. People can gather on an island and they can speak and make a demonstration peacefully. And these experiences reveal the potential of video games, specifically this one, for environmental literacy, encouraging reflection on sustainability, care, and community. This game specifically has also used to teach about biodiversity, how to identify certain species of fishes and bugs with the ones in the game. And it also helps to build civic values. It is proof that playing this game can support social awareness and participation. There are also some downsides. Not all mechanics align with real-world sustainability. For example, this game offers infinite resources, which may conflict with real ecological constraints, the principles of circular economy and the planetary boundaries. But again, this game is an opportunity for critical engagement in libraries and classrooms, using games as tools for leisure, but also for critical thinking about sustainability. And you will think, okay, but what about libraries? So some of the activities I will do in a library could be drawing and painting sessions related to the characters or the backgrounds of Animal Crossing. You can use examples in real other activities, even if they are not related to games. You can give a lecture or a workshop on a topic and use examples from the game. I think it would be also interesting if the librarians have time, they could create an island based on their library on the city, trying to emulate or replicate the visuals. And then you could organize virtual walks or virtual tours of the island covering different topics, environmental or other kind of topics. Since this will take a lot of time, you can also make a project about community shared island. You can lend the game or the console to a different player, and every few weeks, a different user gets the island and he has to maintain it or upgrade it. Other idea is that you can make different contests. You can, for example, ask the people to build the best librarian or environmentally friendly virtual island, and then make them present them, the different things they use, the items they use, how they build it, all the things, and then try to look for a winner or just for the fun. You can also make fishing and catching bugs competitions. You can do in-game, saying like, let's see who's the first to catch 5 ladybugs or to fish 5 different small fishes, all kind of things. You can also organize meetings with people to discuss how to improve the island you have created or they have created. I think not only for this game, but for other games, you can organize silent gameplays in the style of like reading book clubs or like silent reading book clubs, where users gather, they play individually, but then they have a time to comment on their feelings and whatever they're doing on the island. Even it's quite common that you meet your friend and he shows you their island. They're like, oh, this is my island, this is whatever. Besides drawing some paintings, you can do other arts and crafts related to the items in the game, especially with recycled materials. You can use the fish and bugs. When you donate them, you get a piece of trivia, so you can connect the facts from the game with real life. And you can even do workshops about fact-checking these facts the museum gives you about the fish and the bugs to see if they're real or not. Also, activities related to urbanism, how to plant green spaces, not only in game, but in the real life. You're like in the game, when you plant more flowers, the island is better. It has a better reputation in real life too. And finally, you could connect bibliographic resources or exhibitions with Animal Crossing New Horizon examples. You can do an exhibition on the insects of Animal Crossing and connect your books and your journals or your articles and your papers and your materials to the bugs or the critters found in Animal Crossing New Horizons. Other cozy games, my goal is not to be exhaustive or not comprehensive, just a few examples that you can look into more detail after. Stardew Valley is quite famous. I haven't personally played, but it's quite famous. You inherit a farm in a quiet town, and that's the purpose of the game, creating a farm, promoting slow living, farming, and the sense of community. It's the same concept of Animal Crossing New Horizons, but more focused on farming, not only on livable spaces, but on farming. Other kind of games, like the Little Mouse's Encyclopedia, is an encyclopedia in the way that you're this mouse, this fluffy mouse there. You just walk around and you get different information about the elements surrounding you, different species, the plants, the other creatures. It's a discovery game where you can explore the surroundings and learn facts about nature. Another list just about other cozy games, that's like Absu, which is focused on underwater exploration. A little to the left, which is an organizational puzzles game. A short hike is really pretty. You can walk, you can fly, exploration. You have the screenshot there, you're a bird, you can fly. The purpose is keep flying higher You have to do certain tasks to keep flying, certain tasks to keep flying higher, but you can also just rest and bath in the river or the lakes. Cozy Grove, which is similar to Animal Crossing, but in a haunted island, and you have to help spirits. Spiritfarer, also you have to help spirits, but this time you're on a ship. Moonstone Island, when you have to collect different monsters and you can explore the world. New Pokemon Snaps connecting with the main franchises, because some of these cozy games are like independent companies. So New Pokemon Snap, it's about wildlife photography. You just travel around and take pictures of different Pokemons. Or very interesting also, Terra Nil, where the goal of the game is to restore a barren, polluted landscape. So just to finish, video games have potential for environmental education, as we have seen. Libraries could prepare spaces and then consoles or video games as part of the lendable material. Video game examples can be used in other activities that doesn't necessarily have to be related to video games. And Animal Crossing New Horizons is one of the most successful initiatives in the cozy games. I also, Beth mentioned before the IFLA Insulit newsletter. I published a short paper or short text about Animal Crossing New Horizons specifically in the number of June 2025. There's the link if you want to read it. I use some references in the presentation. These are the references about video games and libraries, about Animal Crossing, the credits for the slides and the pictures. And that's all on my behalf. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't bore you to death. And if you have any question, any doubt, feel free to just ask now. Speak now or be silent forever.
Right. That was awesome. Thank you so much, David. We had a lot of chats back and forth with people attending, talking about what games they like. And anyway, there's a lot of chatter in the chat, more than we normally get. So this was definitely a topic that people are interested in.
We could be hours and hours speaking of the same topic.
Yes. Yeah, some of the I'm scrolling back up in the chat to see. Somebody mentioned a game called Terra Nil.
Terra Nil, yeah.
Terra Nil. And that sounded really interesting. I'll be honest, I'm not much of a gamer. This is why this was interesting to me, and I wanted you to talk to get me excited about it. So I'm, meanwhile, have my browser window open with all these games I'm looking at. So maybe it's something to take on these sorts of games. I'm looking to see if there's any questions. There's a lot of information in the chat and people talking about your games that you mentioned and other games, as well as board games. They came up toward the end. Someone's asking, how does one library decide what games to purchase for their community? If you have any thoughts on where to start.
I will start with the classics, like the main titles that are known for everyone. And then the best way to know your community is engaging with them, asking them which kind of games you like. Do you like cozy games or you don't like them? Do you like more action games, shooters? I do think even if other games are like violence and all things, you must have a bit of everything in your library collection, so it's not bad per se. So I will start with the classics or the main games. If a game is famous, it's for a reason. It's usually good, and then you can try and explore more independent games besides on their likings.
Definitely.
That's what I will do.
And I'd say, as my perspective as a user experience librarian, is ask your users, ask your students, your patrons, like maybe, find out what kind of things they're interested in and start there. Someone else just mentioned that they started a video game discussion group, like a book club, but you don't have to read the book. And this month we're going to discuss Stardew Valley. So someone else was asking what you discuss. Have you heard this topic before of doing like a discussion group of video games?
Not in
Book
Spain.
club.
Not in Spain. So I think it's very interesting to make that, as I said, like same as our reading club, but with video games. I think it's really interesting. We should do it more.
All right, two questions popped up in our question and answer. Someone is asking, what is your favorite game? I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit.
I haven't played as many games as I would like. First, because they're expensive, and second, because I don't have that much time, I wish. From the ones
You're
I've
busy
played,
working on your PhD.
Yeah, I think my favorite will be The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, which I mentioned previously. I know there is a second part, which is called Tears of the Kingdom. They've said it's also very good. I haven't tried it yet. But again, I've heard people saying the first one was better. So I will go with Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild.
Let's see. Someone else is asking, what is the top 10 games to learn for others to learn on how to treat our planet? I think you gave us some great examples here, but if there's anything else you're thinking of or you want to mention,
Mm, I wouldn't say a top 10. I would start with Animal Crossing because it's the one I've played most. Some
right.
others I haven't actually tried them, but I know, like I've seen about them. I have friends who've played. I think all the ones I've mentioned are really good to start about thinking of these topics about sustainability and environment. True that more of them are focused on community values, but that's also sustainability, not only planet protection, but other things, more social, the social aspects of sustainability.
Yeah, that Animal Crossing definitely seems like it has a lot of potential. I have to look into that one. Let's see, what else do we have in the chat? Someone was asking, are there issues about using digital downloads versus physical copies? I don't know if that's related to something else, but if you have some thoughts.
I mean, I do think you have to check out the laws in your country for distribution of video games. That's already a because every country can have different regulations. That's the first thing I will check to distribute the downloadable versions. I will think for libraries it wouldn't have a problem. Sometimes it's true that you introduce the cartridge in a different console and it says, "Oh, it looks like a new player is playing," but just say yes and keep going with it.
Definitely. Let's see. There's so many things in the chat. I'm trying to skim through and find some things to share. Let's see. Somebody has said they rarely play video games. This sounds like I could have written this, but I signed up to get more information. I work in a library where there are no digital games. So what would be the best ones to start with for young people?
For young people, I would suggest non-violent games. That's for sure. One of the list of cozy games. Even if you Google just cozy games, you have a huge list of the best cozy games to play with. I wouldn't suggest shooters, horror survival. Even if some young people can be interested into that, I don't think from especially young I will suggest that. I will get with like these more easy games, intuitive playing games.
Let's see. Just a comment. Things like this were said in the chat. Thank you. In addition to being an education one, this was a mentally calming session for me. I never knew before video games could fit so well into a library. So you're definitely winning people over with this idea. Um, so that's great to hear. More libraries will be considering it. Um, let's see. Oh, yeah, somebody said the largest issue in our library is trying to convince the local government that these things can be locked down enough for security issues. I think lending smaller consoles would be have similar issues. I don't know if anything came up related to that. Again, it's your local government and your local country and what kind of laws are happening.
Yeah, again, I guess it all depends on your community and how much you can trust your community, which you are supposed to trust in the first place. So yeah, they can steal a console in the same way they can steal a book, or they can steal a magazine, or they can steal anything, I think.
Exactly, exactly. They'll find a way if that's what they want. Let's see. A couple more questions just popped in the Q&A. Let's see. What are some games from the past that you would love to introduce for users to be engaged with? I don't know whether there's anything new you would like to add. You talked about some of this already.
Yeah, similar to. I will first ask them their likes, and depending on the rates, I will introduce one thing or the other. It's also true that sometimes playing a video game is hard at first because you have to learn how to control the character and how to make the different actions. It will be an advantage if the librarian is there and knows how to play and teaches you to play. But that's another layer of work to the already overworked staff at libraries. We can only dream about that.
definitely. Um, Someone was commenting on the loaning the Switch kits at their public library, but they keep the kits in the staff area with parental locks on the consoles. So if somebody takes them, they won't be able to actually use them. So that's an idea
Yes, yeah.
following up on that. Um, how does one introduce video gaming to academic libraries as it's still viewed as a lower culture than books or even movies to many people?
That's okay. Oof. I
It's a
think that's
big
a question
question.
for another webinar can be developed from that question. It's a social it's a social shift and a personal shift. If the responsible of the library don't believe in this, it's hard to convince them. You can use facts. There are actual research. I say there are a few works, mostly in Spanish, but there are also works in English, and there are other studies and papers on the topic. So I will try to show with facts the potential of games for libraries and for education. So that's what I will rely on data and facts, not on my opinion, but on the actual science saying these things.
Right. Right. I know you had even some references in. We'll be sharing out the PowerPoint slides and the recording so you all can follow up, but you had some links in there, and I agree getting some research-based information would help. And it sounds like maybe another webinar down the road that you can share more information on this. Let's see. I have another question. How do you mitigate intellectual property rights issues when you use games for library programmings or programs?
Again, I think that changes from country to country with different regulations, but it's the same as projecting a film. I know some libraries do film projections or film screenings, so it will be similar here, just a license to screen the video game and play it there. I don't think it will be much of an issue, to be fair, at least in Spain. I know in Poland, for example, there is a lot of the video games in libraries and video game spaces in libraries, but it all comes down to the different regulations of your country. So I barely know the Spanish one.
Definitely. I was thinking about spaces and furniture in libraries. Someone was asking, what kind of space or furniture or materials would you consider to be the most appropriate to create a comfortable corner for video gaming in the library?
So it's true that I wouldn't encourage players to stay for many hours sitting there because that's bad for the back. But I will try to get comfortable chairs. You know, these gaming chairs. That's what I will try to aim for in terms of sitting. I know some libraries they put like puffs, like this like sacks with grain inside, and you can. It's called a puff in Spanish. I don't know in English. Prefer.
Oh, like a beanbag chair? Like a
Yeah, a
beanbag?
beanbag chair.
Yeah,
Yes,
beanbag.
a beanbag chair. Sorry. So
Yeah.
so I know some people prefer a beanbag chair. I will go for the gaming chairs, which are more designed to stay stand still and straight and look back. Again, I will encourage to be there for hours. Like I will limit the amount of time, so a beanbag could also be useful. And also through a big screen to watch properly and not to be like squinting your eyes with the game so close. So big screen and the safe distance from the beanbag or the chair to the screen. That's what I would
Yeah.
fairly think.
Yeah, that makes sense. I had a library, we had a small little bit of gaming and we had bean bags, but the bean bags didn't last very long. The students, you'd go in there and there'd be the little balls everywhere because they popped
Wow.
them open. So yeah, maybe the gaming chairs are better. One last question. We're almost getting to the end. Asks, have you also considered alternative reality games with fictional narratives to connect the story to invite investigations to the real world? Any multimedia integration?
So I haven't thought about that too far. I don't have the goggles to play with alternative reality. I don't think Nintendo Switch supports that either. I know PlayStation does. So I haven't thought about that. But it's true that there's a lot of potential. I know that's used for, as I said before, with Assassin's Creed, it used to recreate Paris. So that's a lot of potential there for the educational purposes. I I'm not an expert on that specific part, so I cannot say anything more. But I do think it's interesting, and there's a lot of potential there.
Definitely. Well, we're just about at nine or at the hour, whatever hour it may be, wherever you're living in the globe. But there are so many interesting things in the chat. Um, I will try to save the chat file as well as the slides and everything, and those that are attending or couldn't attend can watch it later. And you might also find it interesting to skim through the chat and everybody's
Yeah, yeah.
comments. It was probably the most chatty of any webinar I've done for EnsoLib, so this was a great topic. And I'll just end saying thank you again for this great webinar. And anyone listening, we're going to do another one on March 12th, and it's going to be on Library of Things. So maybe a Library of Things includes video game consoles and board games, so it's all interconnected. So thank you all, and have a great, wonderful day, evening, wherever you're coming from. Thank you, David.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'm very happy to be here.